morning all. And I have the responsibility to call this program to order. And you'll be seated and kindly limit movements. First, we want to recognize the presence of God Almighty. I'll now call on Reverend Mother Priscilla Zenga Chigose of the Christian Association Sierra Leone to lead us into Christian prayers.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Protocols duly observed. Kindly can we stand for the Christian prayers. Father, in the name of Jesus, we want to thank you for another day that we are looking into issues concerning human security, human safety, human well-being in all spheres of life, from the village to the section, to the chiefdom, to the district, and within the city. Father, we pray, as we are here this morning, we are listening and watching the video documentary on human trafficking, issues around sex trafficking, vital organ removal, street begging, forced labor, street trading using children, and so many other forms. Especially when you see the area of torture by their masters and mistresses. We are asking that all of us together, we look into this and take this very seriously, as this is another form of disease that has been taking place over 70 years ago. We are asking, Lord, that all of us here present, and those that are not even present that may have the opportunity to listen or to watch this particular event today, will be serious about this matter. I also pray this morning that, Lord, you will open our eyes and give us a heart of compassion, a heart of compassion, a heart of compassion, that we should not say it is not our business. It does not concern me. It concerns every one of us. From the least village to the city, it concerns all of us. The religious people, the traditional people, the lawmakers, all the referral mechanisms. We are all concerned, including the donors. We are asking today, as we are launching this trust fund, my prayer is that the fund will benefit those who have gone through this horrible treatment in the name of Jesus. We also ask that the Lord, we all present here and our member states across Africa and the world at large will join in the fight against human trafficking and migrant smuggling. I pray the power of compromise will be exposed. All those who compromise this, from whatever level, they will be compromised. And power from above, oh Lord, we pray they too will know that we are not saying this is a power from above. No. Human trafficking is our business. It might be your child, your sister, your brother, your wife, your husband. And all of us together, we pray that we will be serious, sober, and focused. That at the end, we will be able to reduce and minimize this. And if possible, to eliminate this. This I ask in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. As we say the Lord's Prayer. Who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. As it is in heaven, give us this day
our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses,
as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, for thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory, forever and ever. God bless you.
To lead us into the Muslim prayers, I now call on Al-Haji Muqtada Sise from the Israeli Religious Council.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. As we launch this trust fund for victims of human trafficking here this morning, we thank the Almighty Allah for the opportunity He has given us to participate in another important aspect of our national development agenda. It is also an appropriate time to recall that the Almighty Allah has sufficiently informed and guided us in a number of verses in the Holy Quran about the unacceptable evil of human trafficking and the need to guard the dignity of human creation at all times. In Surah Al-Isra, the night journey, verse 70, Almighty Allah says, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, وَلَقَدْ خَرَمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ وَهَمَلْنَاهُمْ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ وَرَزَقْنَاهُمْ مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَفَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى الْكَثِيرِ مِنْ خَلَقْنَا تَفْضِيلًا. And the children of Adam, and carried them on the land and sea, and provided for them of the good things, and provided them over much of what we have created with definite preference. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, the table spread 5, chapter verse 32, Almighty Allah says, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Min ajali dhalika katabna ala bani Israel annahu man qatala nafsan bighayri nafsin aw fi fasadin fil ard fakannama qatala an-nasa jami'an wa man ahyaha fakannama ahya an-nasa jami'an. That is why we ordained for the children of Israel that whoever takes a life, unless as a punishment for murder or mischief in the land, it will be as if they killed all of humanity. And whoever saves a life, it will be as if they saved all of humanity. We therefore pray, Almighty Allah, that you guide all who pose danger and threat to human dignity, as well as that you provide protection to all who may be vulnerable in one way or the other. Almighty Allah, we also pray that you will bless and provide for the input, process, and outcome of this blessed endeavor, and that prosperity will prevail now and always. For these gifts, Almighty Allah, we glorify your name. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. قُلْ اللَّهُمَّ مَالِكَ مُلْكَ تُؤْتِي الْمُلْكَ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتَنزِعُ الْمُلْكَ مِمَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتُعِزُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ وَتُذِلُّ مَنْ تَشَاءُ بِيَدِكَ الْخَيْرُ إِنَّكَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَتُبْ عَلَيْنَا يَا مَوْلَانَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَتَهُ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا صَلُّوا عَلَيْهِ وَسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والصلاة والسلام على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين.
Thank you very much, Haji Mutada Sisei. The responsibility is slowly coming to an end. So now introduce our chairperson. I am of the firm belief that all of us seated here today, one way or the other, have contributed in talking positively of how we put hands together to combat issues of human trafficking. Just like all of us seated here today, so is our chairperson. The chairperson was among the 4 sets of staff recruited by the Human Rights Commission of Sierra Leone in 2008 when the HRCSL took up effective operations in 2007. She has a joint postgraduate degree in development planning and management from the University of Dortmund, Germany, and also the 𝐅𝐚𝐭𝐢𝐦𝐚 University of Science and Technology, Kumasi, Ghana. She also has a BA degree from 𝐕𝐫𝐚𝐼 College, University of Sierra Leone. Over the years, she has had several professional training on various human rights thematics, including an international human rights law at Nottingham University, UK. Her 16 years hands-on experience in various human rights interventions are not only limited to human rights observations, investigations, public inquiries, community awareness raising, follow-up on judicial processes, research reports and documentation, but is also well experienced in collaborating and engaging CSOs, government officials, and other partners intervening in the field of human rights. She has a vast knowledge when it comes to local, regional, and international human rights instruments, which are critical tools for human rights interventions. In addition, her work experiences gained in many institutions as work such as the African Union in Mali and Burundi, United Nations World Food Programme, Special Court Sierra Leone, to name but just a few. Over the years, she has distinguished herself in the field of human rights through various fields of interventions, specifically on women and children's rights and access to justice for inmates. Ladies and gentlemen, she has also made tremendous contributions to the production of regional and international treaty body reports, notably being a sole contribution to a chapter in Sierra Leone's country report to the African peer review mechanism. I've taken my time to go through this profile so you will know that we did not make any mistake to select this individual to serve as our chair. If your hands are not busy, kindly help me put them together as I welcome the chairperson of the Human Rights Commission of Sierra Leone, Commissioner Patricia Nasu-Banana.
Thank you very much, John Whitfield, for that brief introduction about me. You know, these days you don't hide anything from the internet. So I was thinking I have to come here, and when I looked at the invitation, it was like, somebody has to introduce me. So I was thinking, what am I going to write? And then he sent me something, noting that he had gone to the internet and collected all the information. I said, just do a little bit of adjustment. So thank you very much, John, for obeying my instructions. So, Your Excellency, the First Lady, Dr. 𝐕𝐲𝐻𝐵𝐻, the Minister of Social Welfare, the Acting UN Resident Coordinator, Nadia Rashid, esteemed members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the Anti-Trafficking and Persons Task Force Secretariat, staff of the Ministry of Social Welfare, representatives from other ministries, departments, and agencies, non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, members of the Fourth Estate, school children, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Let me, on behalf of the Human Rights Commission of Sierra Leone, welcome you again to this very important occasion and express my gratitude to the Ministry of Social Welfare and its partners for asking me to serve as chair of this milestone event. I am honored to serve in this official launch of the Victims of Trust of Human Trafficking Trust Fund, noting the Commission's role as a member of the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Task Force. The protocol to the UN Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime defines trafficking as the recruitment, transport, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of threat or use of force or other forms of coercion. Domestic servitude, sex trade, and labor are examples of types of trafficking. This definition makes trafficking a human rights issue as it puts victims in a position to lose their dignity, deny the right to freedom of movement, and subsequently the denial of the enjoyment of several other rights. So today, I'm happy that the numerous consultations held between the Ministry of Social Welfare and other partners have yielded positive results as manifested by our presence here today to witness the launch of the Victims of Human Trafficking Trust Fund as provided for in Section 11.1 of the Act number 12, being the Anti-Human Trafficking and Smuggling Act of 2022. In May 2021, Sierra Leone went through its third cycle of the Universal Periodic Review, a process where the human rights records of countries are assessed. A total of 274 recommendations were provided for Sierra Leone on how the human rights situation of certain thematics should be improved. Sierra Leone accepted 216 of the said recommendations and noted 58. Outcomes of the assessment revealed that 13 of the said recommendations fall under the thematic prohibition of all forms of slavery and human trafficking. Sierra Leone was encouraged during the assessment to redouble its efforts to combat trafficking in persons, especially women and children, strengthen mechanisms to combat trafficking, and also adopt a comprehensive policy to strengthen efforts to combat human trafficking. Governments of Sierra Leone did not note these 13 recommendations, but accepted all as a manifestation of its commitment to combat trafficking in persons. The Human Rights Commission of Sierra Leone is mandated to protect and promote human rights, and as stipulated in Section 7(2)(e) of its Act, it is also required to advise government concerning preparation of periodic reports required by international human rights treaties or agreements to which the country is a state party. Additionally, it is also required by the Universal Periodic Review that national human rights institutions should produce shadow reports to be presented to the Human Rights Council on the implementation of recommendations preferred in the Universal Periodic Review. As a commission, we have observed and noted several steps taken by government in combating trafficking, noting but not limited to the enactment of the Anti-Human Trafficking and Smuggling Act of 2022, the setting up of the National Task Force on Human Trafficking, and the development of the Anti-Human Trafficking Strategy 2022 to 2026. These strides by government through the Ministry of Social Welfare manifest its commitment in meeting one of its human rights state obligations of protecting human rights through effective legislation, being a channel through which affected persons can claim their human rights. The establishment and launch of this trust fund, as stipulated in Section 11(1) of the Act, represents a significant milestone in the country's unwavering commitment to combat human trafficking and underscores the collective resolve of government and its partners to provide comprehensive support and assistance to victims of trafficking, specifically highlighting Sections 11(3)(b) of the Act, which stipulates the importance of providing comprehensive support to victims, including access to medical, psychological, and other social services. Additionally, it manifests commitment to protecting its citizens in accordance with regional and international human rights instruments, and specifically as stipulated in Section 19(1) of the Constitution of Sierra Leone 1991, which denounces trafficking and slavery in its entirety. Noting complaints received from the public by the Human Rights Commission over the past months on issues related to trafficking and migration, the Commission, with its broad mandate to protect and promote human rights of all in Sierra Leone, established a special directorate on migration and human trafficking in 2022 with the objective to address cases of vulnerable persons brought to its attention in collaboration with other partners such as the Transnational Organized Crime Unit and IOM. Through this directorate, the Commission has made significant strides using the 4 P's framework, being prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnership, and has significant success stories recorded. Notably, our recent intervention in Masingbi, Northern Sierra Leone, and facilitating repatriation of a Nigerian citizen to his home country. As we gather here for this important launch, it is imperative to reflect upon the commendable progress made by government of Sierra Leone through the Ministry of Social Welfare, being the line ministry and its partners. The role of a very proactive and result-oriented First Lady, noting her role in the promotion of the rights of women and girls. Other partners, notably my commission, the International Organization for Migration, Transnational Organization, Organized Crime Unit, local non-governmental organizations, CITRO, members of the Diplomatic Corps, and all international persons who have supported this process financially and technically. This clearly indicates that combating human trafficking is not a one-man's business, but a collective responsibility of all. Thank you very much. So now moving to the program proper, we were actually invited here by the ministry. So I call on the Minister of Social Welfare, Mrs. Melrose Kabantin, to come and welcome us and tell us why we are here. Let's put hands together for her.
Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Lady Fatima Maga Pio, our champion for women and girls, colleague ministers present, members of parliament, the UN family, in particular my dear sister, Nadia, members of the diplomatic and consular corps, development partners, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. It is with great pleasure and privilege that I stand before you today on this momentous occasion and to welcome you heartily to this formal launch of the Anti-Human Trafficking Trust Fund by our esteemed First Lady. I would like to sincerely thank you for taking time off your busy schedules to grace this occasion. This initiative marks a significant step in our ongoing battle against this heinous crime that preys on the most vulnerable members of our society. This event here today serves as a platform for improving coordination in ensuring victims of human trafficking receive better protection services, trauma-informed care, case investigation, and prosecution. Human trafficking, as you have heard from our chairperson, is a blight on humanity, robbing individuals of their freedom, dignity, and basic human rights. It is a crime that thrives in the shadows, often unnoticed and unchallenged. The establishment of this trust fund here today represents a turning point in our collective effort to combat human trafficking and support its victims. I need not overemphasize the importance of the setting up of this trust fund. We are taking our anti-trafficking effort a step further by sharing our perspective on how and why the government, our development partners, the private sector, including business entities and individual philanthropists, should come together to strengthen anti-human trafficking efforts and ensure sustainable support, promoting collaboration, raising awareness, and fulfilling international commitments. A dedicated trust fund can provide financial resources to support various initiatives aimed at preventing human trafficking, protecting victims, and prosecuting traffickers. These can help in improving identification and assistance of victims, increasing law enforcement efforts, and enhancing survival support services. By having a consistent source of funding, programs and initiatives can be maintained over the long period of time, helping to create a more robust and effective response to human trafficking. The establishment of this trust fund today would not only encourage coordination and collaboration among different stakeholders involved in anti-trafficking efforts, but will lead to a more coherent and comprehensive strategies to combat human trafficking. A fund of this nature can also support awareness-raising campaigns and advocacy efforts to educate the public about the realities of human trafficking and to mobilize support for prevention and intervention activities. Most importantly, a trust fund of human trafficking aligns with international commitments and obligations, such as the United Nations Protocol on to prevent, suppress, and punish traffickers. This can demonstrate Sierra Leone's commitment to combating human trafficking at a global level. We will focus on protecting vulnerable groups from traffickers, supporting someone identified as a victim or survivor, and ending victim exploitation. We do so within the context of standard operating procedures of Sierra Leone, the National Referral Mechanism for the Protection of Victims of Trafficking. As a tool, the National Referral Mechanism has clear pathways for victims or survivors to access quality protection services in a temporary shelter or communities, including rehabilitation, reintegration, and economic empowerment. As a country, we are making efforts to ensure that each victim of human trafficking receives the services they require. We are engaging communities, especially family members and relatives of victims, to fight off stigmatization, which is also very serious in our communities. We are training law enforcement personnel and social workers on why and how to listen to trafficking victims in ensuring they take part in their own rehabilitation as well as in judicial processes. In doing so, we are learning from the experience of victims to lead us in understanding not only the traffickers' method of control, but their methods of operation as well. I will be remiss in welcoming you and giving the short statement if I fail to recognize and applaud the support of our key partners, including the International Office for Migration, IOM. It's been doing fantastically well with trafficking. Our development partners, the European Union, providing funds, the American ambassador, and all other well-wishers and those who have been supporting our ministry to take this fight. I normally say we're taking the fight to the doorstep of the traffickers. So for all of those, I want to say a big thank you to your civil society members. They are here. Even the Fourth Estate, every one of us that have been part of this fight, I must thank you. I want to commend the First Lady for her unwavering commitment to this cause and for spearheading the establishment of this trust fund here today. Her leadership and dedication serve as an inspiration to us all and to discuss the importance of coming together as a community to combat this global menace. As the Ministry of Social Welfare, I pledge our full support to the Human Trafficking Trust Fund and vow to work tirelessly to ensure its success. Together, we can make a difference and create a future where all individuals are free from the shackles of human trafficking. On that note, let me thank you and God bless you.
So thank you very much, Madam Minister, for that very short but succinct and a welcome statement to all our distinguished guests here. I mean, she first of all noted the importance of establishing this fund and actually called on everyone to make sure they contribute, including banking institutions. She raised awareness, issues about awareness, campaigns, where messages to combat human trafficking could also be disseminated. She noted the importance of the legal framework, and as I said earlier in my presentation, for us to claim our rights, we need to do that through the legal framework. And then she also made mention of the increase in the law enforcement efforts in order to ensure that we bring to the perpetrators of human trafficking. She also made mention of the support to key partners, including the EU, IOM, and US Embassy, for their tremendous technical and financial support, to the work of the trust fund. And then she concluded by saying that this trust fund is actually a platform on how we can all come together to see how we can combat trafficking in persons. Thank you very much, Madam Minister. So I'm doing a small, as we see the program today, it's actually loaded, and we have several speakers. So I kindly appeal to all persons called upon that you have just a stipulated time of 3 minutes to make your statement. We're already running almost 12 o'clock. So I first of all call on the first person, who is the acting resident coordinator of the United Nations, Madame Nadia Rashid.
Excellency, the First Lady, Dr. Fatima Madabio, Honorable Minister of Social Welfare, other Honorable Ministers of Government and Members of Parliament, Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, colleague heads of UN agencies, representatives of civil society, courageous survivors, ladies and gentlemen, a very, very good morning to you all. I'm honored to be speaking to you today on behalf of the UN country team. Trafficking in persons is a horrific crime and a grave violation of human rights that feeds on vulnerability, inequality, and instability. It is a challenge of enormous global scale, affecting every country and impacting millions of women, men, girls, and boys each year. Trafficking is a crime that takes many forms, including forced labor, sexual exploitation, domestic servitude, and forced marriage. It disproportionately affects women and children, and those who are incredibly vulnerable, including people living with disabilities. Globally, more than 70% of known cases and known victims are female, and children are estimated to account for 1/3 of all victims. The international community universally condemns the abhorrent crisis and practice of trafficking in persons, and nearly every country now has legislation in place criminalizing it. But despite this, there are far too few successful prosecutions of traffickers, and 28 million people continue to be trapped in various forms of trafficking, according to global estimates by the IOM and by the International Labour Organization. Sierra Leone's Anti-Trafficking and Migrant Smuggling Act of 2022 demonstrates the country's commitment to addressing this issue with robust measures to prevent, prosecute, and punish offenders. Importantly, it also includes provisions to protect victims of human trafficking. This approach is consistent with the global community's collective responsibility to protect human rights and fundamental freedoms, including by avoiding criminalization of victims, facilitating safe reporting, access to justice, and responding to the particular needs of child victims, including providing physical, psychological, and social recovery support. It also requires providing redress, compensation, and restitution measures. Today's launch of the National Trust Fund is a landmark achievement in this regard. I would like to commend the government for taking this important step in supporting victims and survivors, and in helping them to reintegrate into society and to make a fresh start. The establishment of the Trust Fund builds on and complements other significant measures adopted by the government, including the recent formation of the Anti-Trafficking Task Force. The National Trust Fund for Victims of Trafficking can help to strengthen efforts to ensure that women, men, and children who have been exploited are identified, are treated humanely, and are provided with the assistance, protection, and support that they need. It can also help to ensure their access to humanitarian, legal, and financial aid. As partners in the fight against trafficking, we must continue to take decisive measures to end this practice, including by supporting efforts on awareness raising, on prevention, and on prosecution. Such efforts are essential to protecting vulnerable groups, to increasing identification of victims, and to holding perpetrators account and ensuring that we can deliver justice for survivors. As I conclude, I would like to once again congratulate the government of Sierra Leone and the Ministry of Social Welfare for launching this commendable initiative. And I would like to thank the First Lady for her personal leadership and commitment to protecting women and girls. I appeal to us all as partners to work together to end one of the worst violations of human rights in our world today, and to empower victims and survivors to reclaim their lives. I thank you all.
So thank you very much, Madam Rashid. She touched on a very key points. First has to do, she made mention about the few successful prosecution of cases. Because we are looking at it from the point of view that people are supposed to be prosecuted. Because we have situations where people are caught in acts of trafficking and nothing serious is done to them, the act actually continues. So she raised concern about the few prosecution of cases. And then she also commended the government for demonstrating its commitment to combating trafficking, and also noted the robust measures to combat the scourge. She said also that this is a landmark achievement for Sierra Leone and the victims actually to make a fresh start. And she encouraged everyone to come on board in this fight. She noted that the persons affected, actually women and children, are persons with disability, and raised concern about these issues. So, you know the human mind? We made a small modification to the program. So next, before calling other speaker, I actually call on Ms. Zainab Mansiri to the technical representation on the BOT Trust Fund. Thanks. Shall we put our hands together here?
Good morning, everyone. Her Excellency, protocol observed. Good morning. I stand on existing protocols to continue the program, and I bring to you the establishment of the Victim of Human Trust Fund. Can we just go to the next slide, please? An overview of what I'm going to talk about. Firstly, we want to talk about the establishment, the appointment of the Board of Trustees, purpose for which the Trust Fund was set up, and how the Trust Fund is administered, key services provided by Victim Recovery Center, future plan, and frequently asked questions. Next slide, please. The Anti-Human Trafficking and Migrant Smuggling Act was passed in Parliament on April 26, 2022, signed into law by His Excellency, retired Brigadier Julius Maada on July 18, 2022. It was also passed in the Sierra Leone Gazette on July 21, 2022. Next slide. Under the Section 11, subsection 1, a Victim of Human Trafficking Trust Fund was established and to be administered by the Board of Trustees. So the Board of Trustees comprises of the Permanent Secretary, who is the vote controller in the Ministry of Social Welfare as chairman, a representative from the Office of Attorney General, who is a member, the representative from the Ministry of Finance, a member also, a representative from World International, a representative from Sierra Leone Association of Non-Governmental Organizations, SLANGO, and Executive Director of the Anti-Human Trafficking Trust Fund, Task Force Secretariat, sorry. In accordance with subsection 2, 1 and 2 of the Anti-Human Trafficking legislation, consultations were held, and representative from Office of Attorney General, the Minister of Finance in September 2023, set up the Board of Trustees. In October 12, 2023, a Task Force Advisory Board approached the following, and these are the members. Next slide, please. Now, the main purpose of this trust fund is set up because we want to achieve 5 main objectives. And these objectives are the interim care center facility for victims of trafficking, medical and related services, witness protection, family tracing and unification services, general protection services for all survivors of victims. The trust fund is also supported by various entities, and it was also administered to provide a recovery center and a safe place for victims of trafficking, jointly in preparation to submit, including concept notes, estimated budgets to the chairman of the trust fund for approval. Next slide. So now how this is set up. A request from the recovery center is sent, and the concept note to the budget estimated to submit to the chairman, the trust fund, board of trustees through the Anti-Human Trafficking Protection Directorate for approval. If the budget is approved, the budget is sent to the Anti-Trafficking Secretariat account for disbursement. Now, the trust fund acquires funds from the government through parliament, money given to the tax fund by way of gifts, endowments, bequests, grants, or other contributions by persons, organizations, and purpose of the trust fund. The Auditor General is mandated to do an annual auditing on the trust fund. Next slide. The key services provided at the recovery center. At the recovery center, we have referral mechanism we followed. We have referral from all partners, organizations, the FSU, and all referral partner bodies. What we firstly do is to do a preliminary assessment and do an admission into the recovery center by an assigned social worker. We conduct a medical screening, which is optional based on the severity of the case. We also have a nurse at the recovery center. We have caregivers at the recovery center who works on shift basis. We also have counselors, we have teacher, we have a nurse, we have two securities that work during the day and at night. After the preliminary assessment is conducted, the case is assigned to a psychosocial counselor for counseling, and a treatment plan is developed. What is the CCAT treatment plan? It is a counselor clinical assessment tool. This clinical assessment tool that is developed enables the child to know the state of mind, because we want to assess the child based on their age, the severity of abuse, and also the exploitation they might have gone through. Now, a weekly one-on-one counseling session is conducted, determined by the severity of the case, meaning a victim will receive care services at the recovery center ranging from 3 to 6 months. It's based on if there's a case in court, we have to follow up on court. We cannot determine when the child will be unified. That determines by the legal aspect. We also have a group counseling session by counselors, followed by a play therapy, because children and also expresses their exploitation through playing. So that is why we organize a play therapy for them, and a home talk is also organized by the nurse weekly. Next slide. Another service that is provided by the recovery center is family literacy. A lot of time, most of these victims have gone through a lot of exploitation and have been disconnected with their family. So what we do as an organization, we try to trace the family and see if we could get them on board and establish contact, because they have been lost of contact over the years. Community familiarization is done. How this is done? Taking the survivors back into their community and establish contact, create a union between them and their families. We sensitize and create a bonding session between children and their families. And also a mediation session is done. It's conducted at the shelter or sometimes at the office. We also provide legal services for these victims, and also provide witness protection, because they need to testify in court and need to be kept safely. During the evaluation process, this is where we determine the vulnerability of the child and the family by conducting assessment, family and community assessment. We do a risk assessment and a protective assessment. And the protective assessment outweighs the risk assessment, then that's when we determine for integration. The next case management process we go through is unification, integration, or placement, which is jointly done by the Ministry of Social Welfare and other partners. After the unification process or the integration process, we do a monthly follow-up. It can be an in-person follow-up, it can be a one-on-one follow-up through the phone. Now, we have a future plan for the victim of human trafficking trust fund. We want to establish that we increase the space already, because what we have now is a space of 25 survivors into our shelter. We want to see how best we can increase the space and provide more accommodation within distinct areas. Next slide, please. We want to provide additional facility for boys and adult survivors because they have been constrained in having shelters to house adult survivors who might have gone through exploitation in different counties and come back home. We want to provide at least one facility in each region. The Victim Human Trust Fund is also looking forward to make these plans in providing facilities in different regions or district headquarters if possible. We want to strengthen the toll-free line, the 134 toll-free line, which is currently under repairs and to be operational within 247. Next slide, please. Frequently asked questions. A lot of times people come up with questions that will the government operate a victim center? No. The government will outsource operation of victim recovery center to non-governmental or local NGOs, which is a community-based organization, and then put in place appropriate policy framework, including guidelines and standard operating practice procedures for effective monitoring and supervision. Another frequently asked question, can you go to the next slide, please? Will confiscated properties of victim traffickers, convicted traffickers be part of the trust fund? Yes. If the court clearly says so, under Section 30, subsection 1 and 2 of the Anti-Human Trafficking and Migrant Smuggling Act, then this convicted property will be handed over to the victim. Will the trust fund be used to compensate or pay restitution to traffic victim? No. It is only the court that orders such compensation or restitution in accordance with subsection 31 of the Human Trafficking and Migrant Smuggling Act. In accordance to section 2, subsection 1 and 2 of the Anti-Human Legislation consultation which were held in October 2022, these are all other plans are in place for what the Victim of Human Trafficking Trust Fund is planning to do and execute. Thank you for your attention.
So thank you very much to Madam Zaidat Mansari for that explicit presentation on the technical presentation on the VOT Trust Fund and how it will operate. She noted several issues, first being the major human rights concern on how issues around the right to be heard will also be maintained. She also made mention of the free toll lines, and then the victim center, she said, will be outsourced, and that will not be done directly by government. She also raised concern about the current challenge that has to do with space, noting that there is an increase in number and they need more space for accommodation. She also mentioned the objectives why the center was actually formed. Specifically, she also focused on issues around transparency on how the money will be used. She made mention of the referral mechanism and also on how cases will be referred to different centers. Thank you very much, Madam Zainab. So now our next speaker, I'll ask on the representative from IOM to come forward and make his statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Honorable Minister of Social Welfare, most distinguished members of the diplomatic corps, high commissioners, ambassadors here present, dear UN colleagues, dear partners of civil society, NGOs, and of course, most respected survivors of human trafficking. I'm very honored to be here with you today for spearheading this initiative towards the effective protection of victims of human trafficking. And actually, allow me as well to read out a text message that I received 2 days back. Earn 4,800 leones working as a housemaid in a Gulf country. If you are a woman, 21 to 40 years, speak, read, write English, apply online now. This, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, could be a potential red flag for us, and this is a typical example that needs our collective attention. to avoid that the most vulnerable can fall into the traps of human trafficking. I also, from my side, I have to thank the government of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Her Excellency the First Lady and her team, the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Task Force, for their efforts and their continuous efforts and leadership in not only organizing this event, but also in their daily commitment to fight the human trafficking in Sierra Leone. I also would like to take this opportunity to thank Ambassador Hunt and more specifically the United States Bureau of Population, Refugees and Migration, PRM, in the framework of the Africa Regional Migration Program, that not only thanks to their support we could contribute to this event, but also if they would not support us, we could not be able to work together closely, hand in hand with the government in Sierra Leone in issues related to counter-trafficking. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we have witnessed so far in the previous speeches, issues related to trafficking in persons have enjoyed significant attention at the highest level of government for several years now, which has contributed to an increased awareness on trafficking in persons and effective prosecution of perpetrators. The list of achievements is long. I can only highlight some of them. The passing, of course, of the Anti-Human Trafficking and Migrant Smuggling Act in 2022, but also, for example, the high-level event of ECOWAS on counter-trafficking that took place last year. In line with international human rights and labor standards, the commitments also highlighted in the Global Compact on Safe, Orderly and Human Migration aims to facilitate access of trafficked persons to justice, allowing them to safely report experiences without fear of detention, deportation, or penalty, and provide them with unconditional protection, assistance, and appropriate redress. As the Honorable Minister of Social Welfare mentioned, 𝐼REMS also is one of the key partners following the comprehensive approach to address human trafficking based on the 4 Ps: prevention, prosecution, protection, and partnership. Respect for human rights, the physical, mental and social well-being of the individual, and the sustainability of our action through institutional capacity development and partnerships are key to our work and in the collective fight against human trafficking. We have been working as an organization for over 30 years now on counter-trafficking and have assisted worldwide over 100,000 victims. In the ECOWAS region in the past 5 years, over 5,000 victims of human trafficking were supported by 𝐼REM and its partners. In Sierra Leone alone, between 2017 and January 24, we have assisted over 490 Sierra Leonean victims of human trafficking. In Sierra Leone, ladies and gentlemen, as in many other countries, where the criminal justice approach has helped drive a legislative change at national level, the eradication of trafficking in person requires a much greater focus on social injustice issues such as discrimination, inequality, labor migration opportunities, and conscientious efforts to protect victims of trafficking and prevent vulnerable groups from becoming the next victims. While protection frameworks for victims of trafficking have been strengthened, as it was mentioned in recent years in the country, heightened collaboration at all levels is needed to effectively and efficiently implement legal frameworks that better protect those identified as human trafficking victims, to have access, as the presentation highlighted, to temporary resident, safe accommodation, medical and psychosocial support, including reintegration opportunities for those who are trafficked abroad. And once again, to restore the dignity of the survivors and prevent re-victimization. The National Trust Fund for Victims of Human Trafficking is an integral component of the Anti-Human Trafficking and Migrant Smuggling Act of 2022 to provide these much-needed services, legal and financial aid to trafficking in persons. I congratulate once again all the efforts that were done by the government counterparts for this important milestone towards rehabilitating and restoring the dignity of survivors of human trafficking. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on this day, much has been achieved to protect victims of human trafficking, but more needs to be done, and it must be done in partnership. I call for continued and increased financial support for the victims in need as per the Leave No One Behind agenda for the fund and related programming to perform its mandated tasks. Thank you all for your attention.
So thank you very much for that brilliant presentation. We actually thank the government for their role played in combating human trafficking, and then it encouraged everyone to actually not fall for the red flags that has to do with issues of looking for money and then traveling abroad. You eventually go there and you have difficulties to have a good life. They encourage all not to fall for such traps which he considers as red flags. He also made mention of the 30 years work they've done on trafficking and the tremendous contribution of IOM to the Sierra Leonean population, and he strongly emphasized on partnership, looking at it from the point of view that combating human trafficking is a collective responsibility of all. Our next speaker for today, for this next speaker, now we have a representative from the UN Office on Drug and Crime. Shall we put hands together for her?
Her Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Dr. Fatima Madabiu, Honorable Minister of Social Welfare, Madam Minister Committee, all the ministers present, members of Parliament, members of the diplomatic corps, head of UN agency, representative of the resident coordinator, Madam Nadia, esteemed guests, partners and advocates of human rights, good morning. I bring you greetings from the Regional Office of United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC West and Central Africa, and from the Regional Director, Dr. Amadou Philip Andres. Unfortunately, he was supposed to be here, but because of the situation in Senegal, the security situation, he is absent. So, on that note, I am deeply honored to stand before you today as we mark a significant milestone in our collective effort in combating human trafficking and support its victims. Today we gather to launch the Victim of Trafficking Trust Fund in Sierra Leone, a crucial step forward in our commitment to protect the rights and dignity of those affected by these heinous crimes. Human trafficking, as has been stated by various speakers here today, is a grave violation of human rights, robbing individuals of their freedom, dignity, and basic human decency. It preys on the vulnerable, exploiting their vulnerability for profit and subjecting them to unimaginable suffering and exploitation. In Sierra Leone, like in many parts of the world, human trafficking remains a serious crime, a serious concern, affecting not only women and children, but also men. UNODC, being the custodian of the United Nations Convention on Transnational Organized Crime, have been working closely with the government and other partners in building capacity for law enforcement in investigating these cases. Today, as we establish the Victim of Trafficking Trust Fund, it underscores our unwavering support and commitment to address these issues head-on and provide comprehensive support to survivors. This fund will serve as a vital resource, offering assistance to victims of trafficking as they rebuild their lives and seek psychosocial support, legal aid, and reintegration assistance tailored to meet their specific needs. But beyond providing immediate assistance, this trust fund represents a beacon of hope for these victims. It's also a solidarity for victims of trafficking. It sends a powerful message that they are not alone, that their voices matter, and that we stand united in our determination to end this modern day form of slavery. It is a testament of our collective response to uphold the principle of human rights, dignity, and justice for all. However, the launch of this trust fund is just the beginning. As has been said by various speakers, as we embark on this journey, we must remain steadfast in our efforts to prevent trafficking, prosecute perpetrators, protect our victims. We must work together across sectors, borders, leveraging on the strength of government agency, civil society organization, the law enforcement, the communities to effectively combat this crime in all its forms. Furthermore, we must redouble our efforts to raise awareness, educate the public, build the capacity to identify and respond to cases of trafficking. We must empower survivors to become agents of change in their communities and advocate for policies and practices that promote their rights and well-being. In closing, Her Excellency, UNODC wants to reaffirm commitments to government and to partners here, and also reaffirm our commitment to the principle of justice, compassion, and solidarity. Let us stand together as champions for the rights and dignity of all individuals, particularly those who have been victimized by trafficking. And let us all here today pledge to never waver in our pursuit of a world free from the scourge of human trafficking. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the representative of the UN Office on Drug Abuse and Crime. Of drug abuse and crime. She noted a few issues. One has to do with working with government and other partners, and that we should not relent in unwavering support to make sure that we all come together to combat human trafficking. She also noted issues around legal rights and other interventions to address the needs of victims. She emphasized on collaboration of all, including the CSOs, law enforcement and officials, and informed all to redouble our efforts in the fight against human trafficking. Thank you very much, Madam. Our next speaker has to be a representative from the Center for Human Trafficking Research and Outreach, Mr. Umaru Fofana.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Your Excellency, First Lady of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Dr. Fatima Madabio, Honorable Minister of Social Welfare, Madam Melrose Committee, United Nations Resident Representative Sarafen Wakana, esteemed members of the Diplomatic Corps, Honorable Ministers of Government, development partners here present, NGOs, members of Parliament, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Umaru Fofana, and today I am honored to represent Dr. David Okech, Director of the Center on Human Trafficking Research and Outreach at the Center of the University of Georgia. I serve as Central's Sierra Leone Country Coordinator. The fight against human trafficking is not just about combating a crime. It is about restoring lives and reclaiming futures. Central understands this deeply, and we remain firmly committed to making a meaningful contribution towards these efforts. Our global cross-disciplinary work combines research, monitoring and evaluation, programming, policy, advocacy, and grassroots engagement to measurably reduce human trafficking and all forms of exploitation. In Sierra Leone, this mission has taken shape over the past 5 years. Our collaborative programs with the United States Department of State Office to monitor and combat trafficking in persons strive to reduce child trafficking and child labor. We have worked tirelessly across districts like Kailahun, Kenema, Kono, Cambia, and in Freetown, always guided by rigorous data. Our findings paint a stark picture though. In the eastern province of Sierra Leone, for example, a staggering 33% of children have experienced child trafficking, and 36 have endured child labor. The most common forms include poultry, fishing, mining, and construction. Even more alarming, 19% of child trafficking victims reported experience force, fraud, or coercion during the exploitation. One young girl, a survivor, told us, I quote, "I keep quiet most of the time. I just leave everything in my heart," end of quote. Her words underscore the urgent need for action. And today, with the launch of the Trafficking Victim Fund, we are responding and hopeful that further action is forthcoming. Indeed, our research findings also point to the need to provide more support to victims and survivors of trafficking, as well as their families and communities. This fund therefore represents a turning point in efforts to support victims. It reduces victimization. Thanks to our dedicated partners, World Hope International, our project has already helped over 80 survivors of trafficking, giving a new chapter. Now imagine the impact when we extend this lifeline to countless more through this initiative. The potential for this is immense. I hope the launch of this fund is just the next step of many that Sierra Leone is taking to address this issue. Central recently established the Trafficking in Person Parliamentary Working Group to help include survivor voices within future legislation. We must also advocate for sustained funding that strengthens anti-trafficking programs, always putting survivors at the heart of our efforts. Before I conclude, let me thank the government of Sierra Leone, especially Her Excellency, the First Lady, Dr. Fatima Marabio, for championing the fight against trafficking and exploitation, the U.S. Ambassador here present, and the Ministry of Social Welfare, and the Task Force Secretariat. This fund is not just about resources. It is about restoring voices and giving hope a fighting chance. Together, let us make sure no survivor in Sierra Leone has to suffer in silence. Let us all come together to reduce re-victimization of survivors. I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. 𝐷𝐼. Mr. 𝐷𝐼 talked about a few things. For him, he said it's not just about combating, it's really about restoring lives and dignity, which are very human rights concern. He also highlighted a few findings from the research he conducted, noting that 33% of the children in Sierra Leone have experienced child trafficking, and 19% of the survivors mentioned that they were forced or went into fraudulent activities or even coercion. They expressed some of the findings and also noted that 80% of the survivors have actually treated free organizations. He made a very serious point about parliamentary working group and the steps to be taken of the legislative resources, to have a voice when laws that can be made in the country. And then for him, he also said that it's not only about the resources, but about giving hope to the victims, all survivors of human trafficking. So thank you very much. Your point is noted. The next speaker we have is the representative from the European Union, Mr. 𝐷𝐼𝐿𝐴. So
Excellency, the First Lady, Mrs. 𝐼𝐿𝐴, the Honorable Minister of Social Welfare, and members of the Cabinet present here, please allow me to stand on existing protocols. It's a pleasure to join you today on behalf of the European Union for this launch of the Victims and Human Trafficking Trust Fund. Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity extend our warmest appreciation to Her Excellency the First Lady and to the government of Sierra Leone for being at the forefront of the fight against trafficking in persons, gender-based violence and violence against children. I would like to recognize the excellent work undertaken by the National Anti-Trafficking in Persons Task Force under the leadership of its Executive Director, Mrs. Daniel Shigaka, and the Honorable Minister responsible for social welfare. Distinguished guests, Sierra Leone has been at the forefront of anti-trafficking efforts and regional cooperation since the adoption of the Anti-Trafficking Protocol in the year 2000 and the ECOWAS Plan of Action 2018-2022. In 2022, Sierra Leone endowed itself with a new legal framework on anti-trafficking and migrant smuggling, which stands the test of time. The new act makes provision for improved coordination between anti-trafficking actors, and I personally had the privilege to participate to the launch in Makeni in September 2022 of extensive consultations to review the old national referral mechanism and appreciate the level of commitment and the anti-trafficking stakeholders in advancing the counter-trafficking agenda across the country. Since then, a National Anti-Trafficking Committee has been established under the leadership of the Ministry of Social Welfare, which is seeking to improve coordination between anti-trafficking actors and strengthen referral pathway for trafficked victims. Second, new standard operation procedures have been adopted which contain concrete and well-thought-through measures and steps that strive to ensure a comprehensive and inclusive system of support that is targeted at and accessible for all victims of trafficking. In April 2023, Sierra Leone hosted the regional conference at ECOWAS states on ending human trafficking, a landmark event for West African nations which led to the drafting and signing of the Freetown Roadmap on enhancing the combat of trafficking in persons in the ECOWAS region, which is set to become part of the next ECOWAS Plan of Action against trafficking in persons. And today, another milestone, which is the establishment of a trust fund to further assist survivors in their physical, psychological and social recovery. Your Excellency, the First Lady, I commend the government of Sierra Leone's commitment to protect and promote the human rights of victims of trafficking. Rising insecurity and loss of livelihood in combination of the restrictions to people movement implemented during the global COVID-19 pandemic have led to the proliferation of human trafficking networks and the increase of exploitation of large groups of the population. Many women and children have taken routes towards what they consider as more hopeful destinations, often falling victims of organized crime networks and finding themselves stranded along the road, often in fragile contexts and in situations of great personal insecurity. As part of the European Union efforts to support governments in West Africa, the European Union and the German government have jointly financed a regional initiative called Organized Crime West African Response to Trafficking, OCRT. In Sierra Leone, the initiative, co-implemented by the International Center for Migration Policy Development and the German development agency GIZ, has supported the consultative process and efforts which have led to the establishment of a national referral mechanism and the adoption of a revised legal framework and standards operation procedures. Going forward, Sierra Leone will be eligible to European Union financial and technical assistance under various regional programs aimed at supporting multi-dimensional security, free movement of persons and migrant protection, and improved national and regional referral mechanisms in cross-border cases on trafficking in human beings. In the framework of these regional programs, Sierra Leonean national institutions may request for support to a demand-driven facility managed by the International Center for Migration Policy and Development to address existing institutional gaps, trafficking person and migration capacity building needs, carry out organizational capacity assessment, strengthen national referral mechanisms, and cross-border cooperation on trafficking in persons. Let me conclude in congratulating again the government of Sierra Leone for launching today the Trust Fund for much needed assistance to the survivors, as well as heightened resources to strengthen coordination and capacities to prevent, investigate, and prosecute the cases of human trafficking. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. He touched on a few issues. He made mention about ensuring that cases of human trafficking are actually prosecuted. And this is actually an issue that has been coming up in several of the presentations made, because it really wouldn't make sense. People are arrested and at the end of the day they are released. He emphasized on that. And then he also made mention about the national referral mechanism, and also requested that we should seek for external support to strengthen cross-border collaboration. He also made mention on the robust role of the Human Trafficking Secretariat, and also commended the government of Sierra Leone for its role in combating this scourge. Thank you very much. So next we have the Honorable Deputy Speaker, the Honorable Deputy Minister, Kadiatu Ali, representing the Minister of Finance. Money.
Good afternoon. Your Excellency, our First Lady, Dr. Fatima Madabio, with your leave, I stand on existing protocols. We have gathered here today to commemorate the launching of the Human Trafficking Trust Fund. The partnership between the government of Sierra Leone, the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Task Force Secretariat, and our development partners, which demonstrates a collective consciousness of the crisis and the global struggle against human trafficking. This collaboration can support and facilitate global security, public safety, and human dignity. The launch of the fund is also particularly crucial for achieving the Sustainable Development Goal 8.7, which aims to eradicate forced labor, end modern slavery, human trafficking, and terminate child labor in all its cruel forms. 27.6 million people globally are in forced labor, with West Africa witnessing a high rise in human trafficking and migrant smuggling. This tragic statistics does negatively impact victims' physical, emotional, and mental health by impeding human capital development, which is very crucial to our President and our First Lady. Additionally, Sierra Leone reports approximately 27,000 people in modern slavery, heightening the severity of the issue. This alarming data is public information, and that has driven this collaboration today. Human trafficking victims are often recruited and turned to urban areas and within urban localities spanning various sectors like mining, petty trading, fishing, and agriculture. Child sex trafficking, particularly of children from low-income families, persists, with cases commonly reported at beaches and nightclubs. The Human Trafficking Trust Fund in Sierra Leone will empower victims by funding protective services and facilitating their reintegration into society. The Ministry of Finance is fully committed to supporting the victims of Human Trafficking Trust Fund by collaborating closely with the Ministry of Social Welfare, allied ministries, and development partners to mobilize necessary resources. As part of the National Task Force on Human Trafficking, the ministry pledges strong support for implementing and enforcing the Anti-Human Trafficking and Smuggling Act of 2022. There are many more additional initiatives that time will not allow me to note. But I must, however, acknowledge my omission of many other support that we are committed to provide towards this effort. Please permit me at this point to express a profound gratitude to the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Task Force Secretariat for their dedication to this cause. Humans have a responsibility to defend the vulnerable. Our government has demonstrated its determination to carry on the struggle. This collaboration testifies to our global and collective consciousness. We are our sisters and brothers' keepers. We must never relent nor give in, but redouble a commitment to this worthy human cause. Thank you.
Very much, Madam Deputy Minister. Touched on some key areas, emphasizing also on collaboration. You know, if you look at the Act, you could see that for us to have an effective implementation, we actually need the money. So she noted the government's commitment through her ministry to support the implementation of the provision resources. She also emphasized on our collective role to make sure the plan really works. And then she made mention about 27,000 people in more than this slavery, and that has driven a lot of collaboration, bringing so many partners together to see how we can work together to make sure that it is addressed in Sierra Leone. Thank you very much, Madam. So next I have the U.S. Ambassador, Brian David Hunt to make a statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Her Excellency, the First Lady, with your permission, all protocols already being observed and noting the lateness of the hour, I will submit the written remarks that my staff prepared to the Ministry of Social Welfare and simply make 3 points. And so many of my colleagues have already said eloquently what I was going to say. First, the problem of human trafficking is not going away. It grows more severe every day. Criminal networks become more sophisticated, and that means we all have to redouble our efforts in this field and find new and creative ways to work against them. Secondly, because of the efforts that the criminal networks put into this endeavor, we all have to partner together if this is going to be successful, which is why I think it is so important that the Ministry of Social Welfare, the Office of the First Lady, the Ministry of Finance, all of the donor partners, the members of the Human Anti-Trafficking Task Force are all here today demonstrating our renewed commitment to continue to work and support one another's efforts. And I want to assure the representatives of the government here today that the United States will continue to be an active partner in this space, and we will continue to work and stand by you in your efforts and support what you are trying to do here to improve the lives of the men, women, and children of Sierra Leone. And finally, because this is an enduring problem, it requires an enduring solution. And that's what this trust fund that you are establishing here today offers. I think it is visionary that you are looking not just at what the needs are today, but what the needs will be for tomorrow in helping survivors of this heinous practice rebuild their lives. So for that vision, I applaud the government. I applaud all of those who have been involved, civil society organizations, international partners in bringing this fund to fruition. And I very much look forward to seeing it continue to grow from strength to strength as it works to ensure that survivors of this heinous practice have the support that they need. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hunt actually made mention of efforts by criminal gangs, to make sure they continue the habits of trafficking in persons, and encouraged all also to come together as a team to make sure we also go against them. He made mention about redoubling our efforts in this fight and assured all of the embassy's commitment to improve on the lives of all in Sierra Leone. He also noted that the funds aim to lead to a solution, and that has to do with addressing issues of survivors, and commends the efforts of all in this particular fight. The next item we have on the agenda is actually a video, and I'll call on John Whitfield to come and make a quick statement in relation to this thing.
Thank you very much. Before we brace ourselves to enjoy the creativity that we have put together, it's good that we have some idea about what the creative video is about. So it has already been established by other speakers that in April 26, 2022, the Parliament of Sierra Leone passed this particular act into law. Now, what this creative video seeks to show us is to highlight key provisions in the Act. We have broken it down into various sects so that people could understand it. Also, this video targets the higher policy decision makers to tell you how serious we are as an agency, as a ministry, and as a government in ensuring that we combat human trafficking in Sierra Leone. Ladies and gentlemen, tighten your seatbelt. Joy as we present to you this creative video, one of a kind you've never seen before.
Human trafficking is the recruitment or movement of a person by another using force or deception for the purpose of exploitation. In Sierra Leone, there are incidents of internal trafficking largely involving children, most times from rural to urban areas. There are reports of international or cross-border trafficking involving mostly young people who are brought into the country or taken abroad and subjected to conditions similar to slavery. This video aims to improve our understanding of the new Anti-Human Trafficking and Migrant Smuggling Act 2022, which prohibits human trafficking and migrant smuggling and ensures these crimes are investigated, offenders prosecuted, and victims supported.
Human trafficking is a sinister crime. The majority of our victims are women and children who suffer brutal violence, forced labor, horrific sexual exploitation, and other abuses in the hands of traffickers. As part of my Hands Up Our Girls campaign, I have joined the fight so that together with other partners, we can combat human trafficking in Sierra Leone.
The reason for repealing and replacing the Anti-Human Trafficking Act of 2005 is to effectively combat human trafficking in Sierra Leone.
The existing Anti-Human Trafficking and Migrant Smuggling Act of 2022 increases penalties for offenders, improves protection services for victims or supervisors, and removes the option of paying a fine as an alternate to imprisonment. It also provides enhanced protection for witnesses testifying in court. In addition to all those, the new law now includes the crime of migrant smuggling that was not covered under the previous act.
Conviction in human trafficking trial always starts with an effective investigation. According to the Inspector General of Police, there are key elements to take into consideration.
In investigating human trafficking under the new act, the consent of an intended or actual victim is irrelevant where there is evidence supporting any one of the following elements, namely the act signifying recruitment and movement, the means signifying force or deception, and exploitation signifying labor exploitation, sexual exploitation, or removal of organ. Then, in support of each of these, the court may allow investigators to tender electronic evidence.
Protection in the context of human trafficking takes various forms, and it is a critical component in the referral pathway for victims of trafficking in Sierra Leone.
Under this law, stiff punishment is provided for persons including foreigners, parents, and other caregivers who engage in fraudulent adoption of children. That notwithstanding, this new act also provides policy directives and strategies for human trafficking prevention through enhanced economic opportunities for potential victims. For example, the President's Big Five changes, which includes a boost for food production, safety nets for the most vulnerable members of society, free quality education for basic and senior secondary school children, youth employment, and several other benefits for the people of Sierra Leone. I therefore encourage all Sierra Leoneans to be positive and hardworking in seeking our livelihoods.
Human trafficking is a serious crime based on the Anti-Human Trafficking and Migrant Smuggling Act of 2022. Convicted traffickers can receive 25 years imprisonment. Let us redouble our efforts to detect, protect, and support survivors and leave no trafficking victim behind.
Strong partnerships are critical in this endeavor to protect victims, prosecute traffickers, and prevent trafficking from occurring in the first place. In this spirit, the United States government stands ready to support the government and people of Sierra Leone, as well as partners like the International Organization for Migration, to eliminate human trafficking at home and abroad.
As a campaigner for the rights of children, especially girls, let me emphasize that a child who is engaged in commercial sex is a victim of human trafficking under the Anti-Human Trafficking and Migrant Smuggling Act of 2022. So now it is time to protect our children from sexual predators. Also, those who lie to our young men and women promising them paradise abroad will be prosecuted and punished under this new law. The time has come to genuinely help our youths realize their potential, both inside and outside the country. I therefore encourage you all to be law-abiding, support each other, and make Sierra Leone our paradise.
Very much. And I see that this video clearly presents the provisions highlighted in the Anti-Human Trafficking and Smuggling Act of 2022. There are certain areas that we need to pay attention to. We can see the emphasis now on the legal provisions. You have a situation where if you are a perpetrator of such a crime, you go to prison for 25 years, and then we also have a situation where you go 15 years with no form of alternative in relation to paying fines, you go direct. So these are some of the legal provisions. And then we also noted the issues around strong partnership as highlighted by the US ambassador, pledging the continuous commitment of his embassy to this cause. And then we also noticed the strong message put forward by the First Lady that made mention of a child in commercial sex is a victim, and encouraged all to desist from encouraging young girls to be in such a practice. So thank you very much. We have now come to a very important part of today's program, and that has to do with the National Anti-Human Trafficking Champion Award. And to do a quick citation, I have here the Executive Director, Mr. 𝐁𝐢𝐭𝐢𝐦𝐵, to come forward to do the citation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Your Excellency, the First Lady, Ministers of Government here present, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'll start by giving you a brief background. In the process of gathering administrative data on human trafficking across the country, the Anti-Human Trafficking in Persons Task Force Technical Committee follow activities of individuals, organizations, and institutions working in the field of trafficking and related issues. To identify the first recipient of the National Anti-Human Trafficking Champion Award, the Task Force Technical Committee made a recommendation to the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Task Force Advisory Board, and this was approved on Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. Now, the citation. The National Anti-Human Trafficking Award recognizes an individual, organization, or institution that is adjudged in the following categories to have provided outstanding and dedicated national service, in particular, A, using their voice and platform to engage in impactful preventive advocacy, targeting potential victims of trafficking, their families, and communities. B, providing effective protection services such as identification, referral, safe return, trauma-informed care, rehabilitation, and reintegration of presumed victims of trafficking. C, engaging in proactive and responsive investigation, including the use of innovative techniques in evidence gathering for a successful trial of alleged human trafficking and related offenses. And D, using legal skills, arguments, and presentation of facts and evidence, as the case may be, to successfully prosecute, determine, or decide human trafficking or related matter in a court of law in order to ensure justice, including conviction for and on behalf of survivors of trafficking in persons, especially children, women, youth, and persons with disabilities. In view thereof, the Ministry of Social Welfare, in partnership with the Anti-Trafficking in Persons Task Force Secretariat, and under the umbrella of the government of Sierra Leone, hereby name Her Excellency Dr. Fatima Mada Biu, First Lady of the Republic of Sierra Leone as National Anti-Human Trafficking Champion. This is a recognition of Her Excellency's relentless sacrifice and commitment in the fight against child sex trafficking through the groundbreaking and impactful Hands Off Our Girls campaign, which aims to ensure equal opportunities for women and girls in Sierra Leone, as well as promote and protect their rights, safety, and growth in our communities. Her Excellency's work has therefore helped in pioneering the declaration of November 18th as the World Day for the prevention of and healing from child sexual exploitation, abuse, and violence by the United Nations. Made this 23rd day of February 2024. I thank you.
Thank you very much. So before the First Lady comes on stage, I call on Mr. Usunchalo, the spokesperson at the Office of the First Lady, to introduce the First Lady. I'm going in line with the program. Mr. Usu should come forward and introduce the First Lady. Also, before your presentation, there is some modification to the program. I first of all call on the Minister, Honorable Melrose Kamanti, to present the plaque and then the introduction of it. Can put your hands together for them. Madam First Lady, I will put your hands together for her. Thank you so much for giving her girls in this
morning. Thank you very much. Indeed, I know that a lot of people will be nodding their heads saying yes, because we have been in this country and we have followed every bit of her work. So on this very special day, we want, as a Ministry of Social Welfare and the Anti-Trafficking Task Force, to acknowledge that publicly and also present to her both the citation and a plaque of appreciation. Thank you.
Hands together for the First Lady. Is that really enough? So I have the spokesperson for the Office of the First